26 public development banks. Our mission? Speaking with a common voice to leverage a greater impact in major international debates and to contribute to the implementation of the SDGs, the Paris Climate Agreement, and the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Our goals? Knowledge sharing and capacity building among the IDFC.
Hello, good morning everyone, and hello to all our online viewers or replay viewers as well. Delighted to have you all around for this event on the transformation of local financial systems for climate and nature, and the potential role of public development banks to achieve this. My name is Alexis Bonnel. I am with the French Development Agency, a member of the IDFC. And I will be moderating this session with a very nice set of panelists that will help us go through this very complex issue of transformation. Transforming anything is already difficult, and transforming a system is even more complex, of course. But that's the task that we all need to do, given the magnitude of the challenges and the fact that finance, despite many years of progressive integration of climate, nature, and social considerations is still not at the level required to help us navigate the big challenges that we have ahead. Pressure is mounting on finance to deliver. And that fix is not a technical fix only. It's a more systemic one, and we will go through that during this session. And most importantly, transforming the system has been mentioned on many occasions already. Take Article 2.1c of the Paris Agreement. It's about transforming the entire system. Take Goal D of the Kunming-Montreal Global Framework on Biodiversity. It's also about transforming the whole system. We have the vision there that has been set out. We have the expectations, but how do you do that concretely at the local level with the local stakeholders? Who can do what? And particularly development banks that have a public mandate, that are working for long-term issues, that are trying to promote general interest. What's their specific role in achieving this transformation? We will go through that during this session, and starting with a presentation on an ongoing program that the World Resources Institute is undertaking in the Amazon region with the support of the French Development Agency, but other partners as well, that is trying to look exactly at that. How do we achieve that local financial system transformation in the Amazon region? We have the honor of having Shuang Liu, who is the acting global director of the Finance Center at the World Resources Institute, that will help us navigate through that ongoing work, and more generally speaking, on the importance of undertaking this type of work to try to achieve this needed transformation. And this will be followed by a panel conversation where we will have several prominent speakers and champions that are promoting this agenda. Anderson Caputo Silva from the Inter-American Development Bank. He is Division Chief of Connectivity and Capital Markets. And within his unit, he also is running the secretariat of the Green Coalition for the Amazon that was set up just a few months ago in connection with other initiatives, including the Finance in Common initiative, where the coalition was presented a few months back. We would of course, hear a lot about all of these efforts that the coalition and more generally the Inter-American Development Bank is undertaking in this space. We also have with us Alejandra Lopez, who is head of climate diplomacy at Transforma, a Colombian think tank that is also pushing a lot the financial stakeholders to go all the way to the transformation that is needed. And we will hear from her regarding their vision on how development banks can support this type of transformations. With us also we have Olympus Mantata, who is head of climate and environment finance at the Development Bank of Southern Africa. In South Africa, we have an ongoing just energy transition partnership, and many other things are happening in South Africa. These are transformative objectives. How can finance adjust itself to deliver and play its role on those transformational objectives? We will get insights from Olympus on that. With us as well is Edgardo Alvarez. He's the Secretary General of ALIDE. That's the Association of Latin American Development Finance Institutions. You have in your hands a lot of potential influence to help this global network of development banks in Latin America play their role in this transformational agenda. So many initiatives around that are being undertaken by ALIDE, and we will be delighted to go through that as well. And last but not least, with us as well is Mustafa Klesh. He is the head of the IDFC Climate Facility. Actually, it's been renamed and its mandate has been expanded. It's now the IDFC Climate and Nature Facility. And we will hear from him about the activities of this facility that is helping IDFC members and working with IDFC members, but also other public development banks and other stakeholders to also work on this transformational agenda that we will be discussing during the event. So many thanks to all of you for being here. Lots to discuss, many dimensions in this agenda. A lot of concrete things that need to be tackled, and that's not easy, but that's the task we need to do. And to start us off, nothing better than having a prominent think tank tell us a little bit what's the vision on this and what should be the possible ways to do this concretely. And Shuang, the floor is yours for this initial presentation. Many thanks. Oops. There we go.
Thanks. Can we have the, yes, please. Thanks very much. I'm so glad to join everyone here for this section, and thanks for the nice introduction, Alexis. We are of World Resources Institute, a global research organization, and our North Star in our new 5-year strategy is the people-centered climate and nature. So we do work a lot on how to finance the climate and nature transition, and more than happy to focus on how the public development banks can play a role in Amazon basin. So yes, so in the presentation, we're going to share the primary goals of this ongoing initiative with the support from AFD and in partnership with many organizations here today. We're also going to share the focus area and the plan on how we're planning to get to the end of the objects of the project, some preliminary fundings, and also conclude on where we see as next steps. And we'd like to invite for collaboration on this as well. The primary goals, through this project, what we are looking at is that how we can support the key actors to green financial systems in Latin America for sustainable and resilient economic development. And then second, we're also planning to look beyond the Amazon region after this project. We also look at how to advance the global climate and biodiversity goals. The other regions we have in mind, for instance, will be DRC and Indonesia, the other basins with rich natural capital, and how we can use the lessons from this ongoing initiative to scale up in the other regions. The focus areas, I think it almost goes without saying why we're focusing on Amazon, but just a couple of data points I want to share with everyone. It is so rich in the area in the natural capital. We're looking at 10% of the known species on Earth, 20% of the liquid fresh water, and 50% of the tropical rainforest. That is why we want to pay so much attention to the area to see how the experiences can be built up in this area. I also want to just quickly share in WRI's Brazil office, we recently published a report jointly with the New Climate Economy to look at economic growth opportunities as well as the opportunity to to protect the biodiversity in the area. Some of the results we found in this report is that the investment that's needed to achieve the biodiversity goal will be looking at about 8.2 billion per year. So the GDP actually we're looking at that can be resulted from a deforestation-free model in Brazil, and we're looking at the GDP of the country with $82 billion per year by 2050. And this is actually at minimum cost to the biodiversity and nature in the region. It will be of some additional investment needed. So the estimate we're looking at is that will cost about 1.8% of the GDP every year for the transition on the nature and climate. However, if we're going to do nothing in Brazil, according to our estimate, the cost to the country will be twice of the 1.8% of GDP that we're talking about. So it is because of the data showing the importance of biodiversity and climate transition that we want to focus on how we can better understand the scenario in the Amazon region. And public development banks, of course, are the different roles and important responsibilities of public development banks in the region, how they can bridge actually the public sector and private sector. Also, how they can build the financial flow to support the green and local transitions, and how they can set the standards for responsible and sustainable finance. That's why in this ongoing initiative, we're going to focus on the role of public development banks in the Amazon region. So this is a quick cap on our plan of how we're planning to conduct this analysis. We are actually between phase 1 and phase 2 as we are speaking. In phase 1, what we did, and with the great support from IDFC and ALIDI, is we disseminated a survey to identify the common challenges as well as the opportunities we have heard from the local and global public development banks in the Amazon region. We also want to understand with the mapping practices, what's the data available that public development banks in the region can have to inform their decision-making process, and how we can use and leverage the data for the phase 2, which we are planning to move on to. This project is very much centered on the so-called collaborative inquiry approach. The way we're planning to do so is to actually have the stakeholders have a brilliant buy-in of the discussion. And actually, it's very much engaging the stakeholders on different dimensions and based on the data analysis that we can provide. So during the phase 2, building upon the results from the phase 1 survey, we're planning to provide analytical support and also to the local MDB and local and global MDBs in the region to unpack priorities and challenges, and also facilitate the conversations and dialogue to have a more common understanding of the system dynamics in Amazon region. Last but not least, as the phase 3 of this project, we're planning to conduct even more stakeholder engagement. That is where we're going to further advance the shared priority through the additional analytical support, and this will be largely in conversation and kind of co-develop it with our partners we're going to engage in phase 2. So next couple of slides, we're going to share just quickly some of the preliminary findings from the survey we conducted in phase 1. Firstly, just a couple of mapping of who we have heard from. We got responses from 5 PDBs, and at least 3 of them reached out and asking for more additional three PDBs reached out asking for more time to fill in the survey. We actually have national development banks in the Amazon region countries, which host about three-quarters of the rainforest in Amazon region. So we're really glad to see the active response from the PDBs in the region. Some of the shared priorities we have heard very clearly from the partners we're working with is that all of them highly agree on the shared priority for the green finance in the region. When we're asking them to rate from 1 to 5, and 5 being the most important agenda, all of them have responded saying this is the most important agenda on their list. We've also seen that high-level commitment on greening the financial system. At the end of the results, we'll be more than happy. And also to inform the next steps on the engagement, we'll share more details of what this is. At the bottom right of the slide, there is a link to the survey. So if there will be partners who are interested to share more information, we'll be more than happy to collect those feedback as well. Next, the shared challenges. I think we have heard some of the similar challenges, but just to categorize them in a way. First, we have seen the PDBs sharing very clearly within their own work, there are struggles with instrument, tools, and capacity. There isn't sufficient financial and non-financial products for biodiversity, especially considering the diversity of the actors and needs in the region. We also heard that it's actually challenging to manage the impacts, both in terms of the social and the environmental one, how to quantify them and also build them in the process. We also heard from the PDBs there's also more challenges in the broader context. That's, we're highlighting 4 points here. For instance, the regulatory environment in the region. And the economy in the region is how high informal and how the PDBs can better fit into the local situation. And also the poor infrastructure and the low financial inclusion. These are the challenges we have heard repeatedly from the PDBs in the region. Also, just want to share what kind of activities we have heard from PDBs that we surveyed. All of the 5 PDBs who have responded to the survey are investing in agriculture and agribusiness. However, for the rest of the sectors we listed here, not all of them are investing in those areas. What we see is this is a great opportunity for the partners we're going to work with in this project to probably learn from each other how the experiences have been to invest in these areas and sectors and how they can actually scale up these practices and expand it to the other areas their peer organizations are investing in. Also, we are also looking into how PDBs are investing in this region. These are the 3 common threads we have seen of the approaches that the PDBs have taken in the region. For instance, they are directly investing and promoting green finance in the region. We've seen a very clear signal on how they're providing the microfinance lines. They use grants to attract private finance, as many other peer organizations have done, and also how they have worked very closely with the local entrepreneurs on innovation. We also seen, other than the direct investment, how the stakeholder engagement will shape the enabling conditions to unlock more finance. And that it's a long list of stakeholders we're talking about, ranging from the government agencies, from the private sector, from the local community and CSOs in the region. And that's how collaboratively, with the role of PDB can play, we can work on the engagement and partnership. And last but not least, the counterparty support. This is where actually with their clients, the PDBs in the region have provided the capacity development, as well as the general and specialized technical assistance to help their clients in the biodiversity and the other investment management approach. So finally, this is how we are planning to finalize the project for next steps. We see 2 highlights we want to share today with everyone. First, we will want to confirm the shared priorities and analytical basis. And the idea by doing so is to actually get the buy-in from the partners and PDBs in the region. For instance, we have seen a very clear demand in how to provide a tailored, innovative financial instrument and some of the tools that the PDBs will need. One example, maybe to quickly highlight, is that we have seen a great need to have some spatial mapping of the investment against the environmental and social indicators. We've seen many tools, including WRI's Global Forest Watch, which can provide a geospatial mapping with great granularity, and we're happy to see how those tools can actually help with the local practices in the Amazon region. Second, we are also seeing the great needs in engaging key stakeholders and address the knowledge gaps with further analytical support. And this is using the results from the survey again. We're identifying a list of the stakeholders, and we will actually further reach out to the partners in Amazon region, as well as the global partners, including AFD and IDFC, to see how we can capitalize and actually take advantage of the local partners' knowledge in a constructive way. So here's my presentation, and also I actually have other teammates who are more involved in this project. So if you have any question, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Valerie and Carol are the two brilliant colleagues on the team who are deeply involved in this project. Thanks very much. Alexis.
And many thanks for this presentation that sets the stage, and also the multiple dimensions of the role of public development banks. It was quite striking to see that almost all of them that have responded to the survey consider that it is part of their mandate to contribute to the transformation of the financial system, and it's one of their priorities. That's not a given, because one could consider also that a development bank is there to finance development investment only. And it's a lot more than investment that a public development bank is working on, of course, as we've seen, counterpart engagement, partnerships, capacity building. It's actually working on the entire system and not only on a specific project. The project is probably an entry point to get involved in all the other dimensions of financial system transformation. But without further ado, may I invite all panelists to come to the stage, and we will now hear from different views, different stakeholders, but all part of the system, and very much engaged into championing more transformative action for the system. Many thanks, and Xuan, if you wish, you can also join. There are enough seats, yes. Dealing with financial system transformation requires collaborative work, and here we have a good illustration. You need all stakeholders around the table to move forward. So again, many thanks for being here, and we've mentioned the Green Coalition initiative that has been recently set up, that is gathering all development banks working in the Amazon region. I may start with you, Anderson. You are running the secretariat of this initiative, and apart from that, of course, the Inter-American Development Bank is doing lots in terms of supporting the local financial systems and the corresponding development banks. Can you tell us more about the coalition and more generally the activities of the Inter-American Development Bank in this space?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation here. Good morning to all. First of all, to really congratulate Trung for the work too. I was there watching, and wow, there are a lot of synergies that we should talk and integrate the initiatives, and you see how connected this is. No? So I wanted to tell you, like, we are going in a direction that is covering several of the angles that you just observed. No? So there are a lot of synergies here, and we have a lot of work. The Green Coalition was launched. It's unbelievable, actually. No, the Green Coalition was announced in August 7th. No, so it's not like very, very recent, and it's amazing what was accomplished so far. No, and then it was an idea that was shared by the BNDES and the IDB, the presidents. No, so in Belém, in August 7th, it was announced this coalition. No, we were all there. No, and then it was a very fast movement to have a declaration at the time. So in the morning we had a declaration, and we were trying to build this coalition and bring development banks of different countries to sign. And then I was telling them, no worries, no need to go through lawyers. We'll figure out later what we're gonna do, right? And then please come to Belém. And then it was amazing, the result, because it started like 3 weeks before the event. We didn't have the signatories yet, but then in Belém we were able to bring 16 development banks. Now, today we are 20 development banks, 17 development banks of 6 countries in the Amazon region, plus the IDB, the World Bank, and CAF as international development partners. So this goes a bit into what we discuss here, what we can do together, multilateral development banks and public development banks in the region. For the IDB, this was super timely because President Elon had got the mandate of the members of the countries of the Amazon to think through about what could be done. And the IDB launched the Amazon Forever program, that has several different pillars that look into, like, the sustainable development in the Amazon, looks into people, look into cities, looks into connectivity, then the bioeconomy. So it's several different angles. And then we see the Green Coalition as an implementation arm that will allow, like, for the IDB to support the development in the region. So what happened since August? It was really, really amazing because we announced in the morning. In the afternoon, we had a closed door first working session. Because I was like President Elon was with the whip on me, right? Saying, like, announcing is nice, but we want to deliver, right? So in the afternoon we had a working session with all the members. Then we had a fixed meeting in Cartagena. We had the second session, working session with the group, and then we have multiple one-on-one calls and surveys with all the members. In preparation of our bylaws and the action plan. And then we had targeted and we delivered here at COP the bylaws and the action plan for the 2 years that we are going to work to deliver by COP 30 in Belém, back to Belém. So it's Belém, the action plan. And this action plan is focused in 4 areas that are very, very related here. The first work stream is integration, collaboration, and mapping. Like, what is the footprint of all these banks together? Where are these banks strong? Where are they weak? What are the key verticals, like bioeconomy, sustainable infrastructure, etc., right? And then we have some results that are very similar here on the survey. But we'll work on that and identify areas that the group can improve. Based on this, work stream 2 is that we are going to develop then sustainable investment frameworks. What are high standards for bioeconomy, high standards for each of the sectors? And that would then pave the ground for also synergistic with the work stream 3, that is a financial innovation lab that this group is having. And then to provide innovative solutions for the different work streams. And finally, the 4th one is the resource mobilization. With all these organized, we have tremendous strength in terms of mobilization of catalytic resources, do blended finance, and then implement financial solutions for the results. So let me stop here, but I wanted just to highlight that we are super excited with this initiative. In every work stream, there are already identified leaders of public development banks that will be leading each of these work streams. And then we at the IDB, we are supporting now after this involvement that we had to launch, create, etc. We have launched a website where everything is transparent and it's reported there. And then we are going to be leading the engagements and making sure that the engine is running. Okay, so let me stop.
Thank you so much, Anderson, and it's impressive to see how you're trying to seize the full potential of the development bank network in the region, seeking synergies, building coherence, fostering innovation and concrete action in the field. That's definitely required, and it's also a signal that there is potential out there, and it had not been seized, or at least not enough, and impressed to see that in just one day you achieved so much on August 7 in Belém. Let's hope that in 2 years' time we can wrap up COP in one day, thanks to your leadership. But that's also the signal that there is a demand and there was a need. So putting all of this in motion is very important, and thanks to you, kudos to you for championing that. In the region, there's another institution that is promoting very much the networking of development banks and building capacities within them, and this is ALIDE, the Association of Latin American Development Finance Institutions, and we have the honor of having Edgardo, the Secretary General, with us here, and I would like Edgardo to give you the floor if you wish, and I think you have a presentation, so I will move out.
Good morning to all of you, my dear friends. It's really a pleasure to be here. Let's see, where is the presentation? Oh, it's there. Oh yeah, thank you. Okay. Please, I invite you to sit there so you can see the presentation. Be my guest at this time. Yeah, because it's very difficult. If not, you are going to get a problem with the neck. Okay. First of all, it's really important for us. IDFC is an association of development banks from all around the world. And ALIDE is the Association of Latin American Development Banks, but we also have associated from Europe, like AFD, KFW, ICO from Spain. And the idea is that we serve as a network between our banks. We try that our banks share their expertise and all the good things they do, and try to get better relationship with the multilaterals like IDB or banks from outside of the region. So transforming financial system for climate and nature role of public development banks is so demanding. It was so demanding for us. And you, I think, no, this. And you have put some questions. How to combine the strengths of national public development banks with multilaterals, no? So it was really good because you have the view of the multilaterals, and we are closer to the national development banks. And the idea here is to show you how we are working with the banks, how the banks are working, and the different initiatives we have with the multilaterals, with like IDB, like EFD, and GSF, and others, no? Oops. Yeah. First of all, we think what is not known, it doesn't exist. It means that it's really need to know what each one of us are doing, what we're doing. When we had the COVID, and we was just having just a few words before, COVID was something really bad. But the only thing he could give us positive was that we began to work at home and different places. And at this time, we realized that each one of our members were doing things. It means in Peru, in Colombia, in Brazil. And we thought, okay, we are a network, so let's share the information that each one of them are doing. So we create this observatory. In this observatory, we could share all the things they were doing. I don't know how to get this, but if I could have pressed this part, you could see in Power BI, and you see all you can choose for country and the institutions what they are doing. This is just a sample of this page from the November until the 3rd of November. So you could see what the DFC from Belize is doing, the Corfo from Mexico, from Chile, sorry, with the support of IDB, and the BDP, the AFD, what have done. So the idea is that everybody knows what we are doing, and it will be helpful for us. The other thing is that with IDB, we created a hub because we have different initiatives. Okay, let's put everything together in a hub. So we have the banking hub, where we have the APP group platform. With the support of IDB, we have a lot of countries from our region working on APPs. And the idea is to strengthen the capacity building of them in order to finance good projects. And this is the APP group platforms. We have a Latin project. It is really interesting. I've been in several lectures and everybody asks, okay, who are the projects? I don't know where the projects are. We are international investors. We have the money. We have the part of the private sector. We don't know where to invest. Well, this is one alternative we were putting on the table, is the Latin project. Because if you get to this to this platform, through our platform, you could see all the projects they have in Mexico, in Brazil, and we are asking our other countries from our region to get involved in this. We have the Development Banking Community of Practice, where we can share studies, publicities, and publication and all of this through this community of practical. And we have also a digital bank. It means you ask if you are bank of our community, you can go there and you see, okay, in which step are we and how we can ask for support for IDB to get to our goals. We also had a relationship with ECF, sorry. You know, it's a very difficult institution to work because it's so demanding. But we are a delivery partner for them. It means we pass the examination, so we could be a delivery partner. We had a project. Last year, we just finished this year for 6 countries, Argentina, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Paraguay, and Uruguay, and you see which were the things we worked. So I think with this, we could help our members and our countries to get more involved with, try to be qualified by the GCF. With the CAF, we have this, we help them to launch this project also. 2 years ago, they launched the DEC9, which is a platform for the carbon market initiative, which is so interesting for our region. 2 years ago in our National Assembly, as I told. This is the objectives we have. They have the boosting the global competitiveness of carbon credits in the region, promoting job creations, and they have a strategy. And this is something that we can help them to be better known to our members, because, as I repeat, which is not known, it doesn't exist. We also have, as my friend told, be a part of the Green Coalition. We were really honored to be invited to since the beginning. So I know what happens in Belen, and I hope we will be in Belém for the next COP 2 years more. And I think it's really interesting. But I want to just highlight something. 3 or 4 days ago, because the president of the BNDES during the lunch said something. Okay, everybody knows that we must put some more trees on the Amazon. It's the best way to get more oxygen. But don't forget what is behind the trees. They are the people. So we must work for the people and for the nature. If we don't have this balance, we are not doing our job as the development banks. And this is something really, really strong, and it's really good for that, because after this, I'll tell you, I had the opportunity to talk with the president of the Amazonian Development Bank from Brazil, and he told me, and it's something related to what with your presentation. We are a bank, and we have 2 big issues. First, microfinance, and second, the nature. So we must work in balance, because if we don't have, in each project we work, we have to have these 2 things in mind. If not, if you go much to this, you forget the man. And if you go much to this, you forget the nature. So we must equilibrate the things in order to have a sustainable development. And well, sorry. And regarding to the Paris group, we have also worked with the IDB. As you realize, we work a lot with IDBs. Thank you, my friend, with the GTAX objectives. And this is a space that allows knowing the Paris Agreement for the development banks and helping them in which stage we are and what do we need to be better. So this is something that we work with them. They can have a personalized mentoring sessions in special skills, in climate, in anything they have. This is something we are doing in Alide. And I wanted to point it this because, as Rémi Rioux told us when he launches the next fix, which we were really proud to be a part of, one of the organizers in the one it was a completely success in Colombia, Cartagena de Indias, said, okay, let's work, but let's try to don't overlap what different organizations are doing, because it's much better to know what we are doing and to join and to reinforce the different things that the different organizations are doing. I don't know, probably you are economists or not, but the resources are scarce and the needs are infinite. So we must be very tough with how we assign the resources. Okay, thanks you a lot for your time, and please, I invite you to come here again.
Thank you so much. You know, when the SDGs were adopted back in 2015, there's this SDG 17, partnering for the goals. And I remember some discussions when they were adopted at AFD, people were saying, well, okay, yes, partnership, but what does it mean concretely? I mean, how can we do that? And here we have, I think, a demonstration of what it means and why it is so important. And indeed, I mean, what happens in Belém doesn't stay in Belém, thanks to you. It goes, it spreads over all over the place. And I think that's one of the things that Alide forcefully contributes to. Alejandra, you are working and looking at all of these issues from a Colombian-based think tank. What are your views on the financial system transformation issues and the role of public development banks? And what are the opportunities but also challenges that you see moving this agenda forward?
Yes. Thank you, and first of all, thank you very much for inviting us, Transforma, to this very interesting conversation. At the outset, I would like to say that Transforma is a Latin American think tank, so it's not working only for Colombia. And well, we have been working in several areas with regards to the participation of financial stakeholders in alignment to the Paris Agreement, in particular institutional investors, insurers, pension funds, but also we have been doing several research work in terms of the consistency of financial flows at the national level, in particular for Colombia, and also an analysis of the reform of fossil fuel subsidies in Latin America. So I wanted to underline this because I find that one of the most important things that we can do here is make a connection between this conversation and what is happening in the negotiations here at COP28. So I feel that we are very close to take a historical decision at COP28 to agree on an energy package that includes the phasing out of all fossil fuels, the tripling of renewable energy, and the doubling of energy efficiency. And if this package is actually agreed, that would mean that when we come back to our workplaces, we will have to think what that means at the regional level and at the national level and at the local level. And a really important actor in actually making this a reality and translate it from a political declaration into action requires multilateral development banks and national development banks to actually finance this transition and to engage with local stakeholders like and regional stakeholders from the financial and the private sector to actually mobilize and catalyze other sources of funding. So I think it is important that, so if this, we don't know if this will be agreed, hopefully it will. Like, that's the best case scenario. Even if that best case scenario doesn't happen, we have a second best scenario in which we will get the tripling of renewable energy and the doubling of energy efficiency. That's, I think, almost an agreement. And that still requires for our for a lot of work in our region. So in Latin America, for example, we have these this target for the region to have 70% renewable energy. And that's, I mean, our basis is quite high. Latin America is one of the most advanced in this area because we are already 60% renewable, mostly for hydro. But still moving to the 70% with wind and solar is a challenge. And we have to enable that. If these targets are agreed here at COP28 at the regional level, and provided that we have the capacity and like the theoretical feasibility to go 100% renewable by 2040, then the question is what ALIDE, what the IDB, and what multilateral development banks have to do to enable this to be a reality. And I think it is important to then internalize in each development bank that the mainstreaming of climate change requires that every investment decision takes climate change into account. So in this case study that we did about the consistency of financial flows with the Paris Agreement in Colombia, what we found is that the budgetary provisions for climate finance are very small compared to those for fossil fuels. Like the fossil fuel budget is like 500% more than what there is for climate finance. But in the middle, there are lots of budgetary provisions that may seem as carbon neutral, like for health or education, poverty eradication. And it is hard to say how these other budgetary decisions have to do with climate change, but they do. So when you look at the health investments and development assistance for health, it has to take into account climate change, because in the future we will be needing an update of the health sector in terms of vaccines, new vaccines for different sickness that are coming from the increases in temperature and vectors adding to whatever we have already. So when I say that every investment decision and every budgetary decision has to take climate change into account, is not only about the energy package and the just energy transition, but also about creating resilience and avoiding stranded assets and building a business case, not only for where the money is already, because there's a business case for renewable energy, but also to avoid investing in non-resilient or non-climate compatible infrastructure and towards the future. And of course, part of the biggest challenges in developing countries relates then to this dependence on fossil fuels, but also for example, the very fact that we have really high fossil fuel subsidies that need to be reformed and that can be reformed, and where development banks, again, can play a very strong role in ensuring that there are social justice measures, that there aren't social disruptions, and that it is possible to provide certainty in the transition and in investing in the right ways and the right potentials. Yeah, so I guess I'll leave it there, and we can continue discussing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alejandra, and also for making the connection with the negotiations, because indeed, one of the things that public development banks can also bring to the table regarding financial system transformation is this link between the global objectives and the local contexts, and how to translate the global objectives into local action. Their shareholders are all parties to this negotiation, so that's where the connection can be made, and that's yet another added value within the financial system of public development banks. But still, there's plenty to do, as you said. We're not there yet, and we will come to that in a second. But before we go to that discussion, I would like now to give the floor to Olympus from the Development Bank of Southern Africa. Southern Africa has engaged into bold objectives regarding just energy transition, and there are many other climate and environmental objectives that have been set up. How do you cope from the Development Bank of Southern Africa, and how do you contribute to financial system transformation that is aligned with these objectives that have been set up in your country?
Thank you very much, and thanks for the invite. My thinking around this topic, especially the transformation part of the system to respond to the urgent need, took me to look at a paper that was put together by the Stockholm Environment Institute that talks to the key factors that need to be looked at from a transformation point of view. So I was looking at that relative to what we experience on the ground within South Africa, and it was, amazing, even at the DBSA level, the kind of issues that need to change to make life easier and also to give impetus to the work that we do. The first thing that they mentioned was around prioritizing climate critical infrastructure in debt restoration processes. And this talked to really the challenges that you have, especially in our part of the world and the area where we operate in, where due to various shocks that countries would experience, you would have processes, especially by, international financial institutions, to look at restructuring that in many ways would result in limitations, specifically around contingent liabilities, more specifically here, guarantees that are typically used to try to support the creditworthiness and also the bankability of projects. And that really took me to an experience that we had recently in South Africa, where you had a very successful renewable energy program, and it was really anchored around the ability of the government to provide guarantees, and also the national utility to provide power purchase agreements. And when both those anchors collapsed, if I can put it that way, the program got stuck, and therefore it required a different approach. And from a DBSA point of view, our response was really, even though not directly to the program, but advancing more initiatives around embedded generation. And it was more around trying to use concessional financing, to use it to improve bankability of projects by putting together credit guarantee structures. And so it becomes quite important to realize that as much as you might need to respond to the shocks that are experienced in countries, if climate is seen as an emergency that we are talking about, you might need to prioritize key projects and ensure that they are insulated from whatever response you are applying within countries in response to the challenges that you are facing. So I thought that was quite instructive, and I think it's a change in approach that financial systems have got to take into account. The next thing that was mentioned was around establishing currency safeguards in climate infrastructure lending. And even that was it really talked to us in the sense that, from a DBSA point of view, we got quite excited with new programs that we had in place with support from, the GCF. The interesting thing, obviously, was that the financing was in hard currency, and the immediate thing that we experienced was, due to currency risk, we could not implement. Actually, we had those projects sitting with us for more than 2 years, but we could not deploy because obviously your project sponsors would not take currency risk. With the volatile currency like ours, it was just impossible to look at deploying funds in that way. So what the study was suggesting was that maybe you should be looking at safeguards very similar to what you have in your social and environmental safeguards, but specifically here for currency risk, where you set parameters to say, at a certain point where it becomes clear that currency risk would pretty much torpedo projects that you would like to implement, you might need to look at a different approach. And you might need to look at measures to make sure that projects could still be able to proceed under those circumstances. And it just took me back again to another a GCF project where we were stuck because of the same issue. And the solution that was brought up was to say there would be a fund put aside at the GCF level, where when we start experiencing, losses that are due to currency risk, you can be able to tap into the facility, which basically indirectly was GCF taking the currency risk and was very helpful in unlocking a very significant adaptation project that we are starting to implement. So I thought that was also quite interesting. I don't know how much time I have, but the other thing that I thought was important was around addressing cross-border climate risk by investing in systemic resilience. And I thought that was quite instructive, especially because these climate risks are, as we know, complex and interconnected. And it took me back to a project that we are currently working in our region between South Africa and Namibia on green hydrogen. And some of the challenges that we are looking at was the scale of certain initiatives that we are looking at least, let's say from the Namibian side of things, were so significant that relative to the GDP of the country, it looked like it did not make sense because it was just, so inordinately big. But when you start looking at a regional approach and the impact that a regional approach would make for the different needs of the various players in the region, it starts to make a lot more sense. Therefore, it advocates for a lot more interconnected and systemic approach to not only project development, but also to how you manage that systemic risk and how you finance it. So I thought that was quite, instructive as well. And lastly, I was also thinking about, obviously the breakthrough around agreement on, putting together the loss and damage fund. But I think the key thing, especially for development finance institution, is how we translate those agreements into implementable actions. And the way to do that is really the understanding of how you design instruments that would facilitate the commitments of those funds and provide a flow to where the needs are. And, I think that is a challenge for us in response to this agreement as they are made, to provide a platform for them to be implementable and for the funds to flow. I'll stop there. I think I probably took too much of your time.
Many thanks, Olympus, and also for highlighting how bumpy the road is. You sometimes get stuck. The challenges are complex. You need to find innovative solutions. Didn't know that the GCF can cover foreign exchange risk, even indirectly. That's good to know. We will tap into that as well, building on your experience for sure. Definitely, the road is bumpy, and that's also one additional incentive to work collaboratively. Mustafa, you are running the IDFC Climate Facility, and the facility was set up because there is a difficulty that needs to be facilitated. Can you tell us more about the activities of the facility and how it can contribute to this agenda of helping through IDFC and its members local financial system transformations?
Thank you, Alexis, and good morning, good afternoon to all. And I'm happy to be here to present what are the activities of the Climate Facility. Was launched in 2019, so about 8 years after the launch of the IDFC, the club itself. As you may know, the IDFC club is a club of 26 banks, and they have all the same objective, which is development. The condition to be part of the club is that you have to have the mandates of development from your country. And today, to fulfill these development mandates, the question of climate and nature in general is not accessory, in fact, because if you want to do it, the development is now challenged by the problem, the crisis of environments, of biodiversity, and there is no question to do it with or without the climate or without the biodiversity, because these crises are challenging the mandate itself. So it's important to mainstream this issue when you are doing these activities. So since the 2019, we put in place some activities to help, of course, not to replace what our other technical assistants are already there, but to try to find a way to assist our members by because of the diversity of the members. We have big banks, we have small banks, we have banks with mandates concentrated maybe on development of infrastructure. The other are maybe more concentrated on SMEs. So all these activities, diverse activities, but the point is again the development, and the idea is to share the knowledge, because we have also different progress in terms of mainstreaming the climate and biodiversity in their business. And the idea is really to work between the peers and try to get this the progress from these exchanges between the different peers at the different level of progress and business. So this is why we are mainly composed. The climate facility is managed mainly by people seconded from the banks in the climate facility, because this is important to keep this relationship between the members and these peer exchanges. So we have this knowledge sharing, which is a very important one. We also, so the knowledge sharing is trying to provide tools, activities that are successful in one bank to be also scale up in other banks. We also provide support on the capacity building, because it's necessary to help the members in those activities that for which they don't have a lot of experience, to provide them that experience. And last but not least, what is important, because the banks they don't like theories, they like practice. We are also creating a coalition of members to implement some kind of activities. We can give you good examples. We have one project which is on the urban sector, mobilizing 5 banks in 5 countries, and we are trying to help them to mainstream the climate change in their activities of urban development, and at the same time to provide some support for developing some projects. We are also developing something on the nature-based solution. It's a project, ongoing project we are currently working on. The idea is also to help the banks to address the issue of biodiversity through this by using the nature-based solutions for doing better infrastructure projects for their clients. And we have also some activities helping the members to improve their institutional capacity by providing, for example, we have a program called Fast Track, Climate Fast Track onboarding program, to help some members to go fast in integrating the tools, the policies, the strategies, in order to put in place a good framework to deliver for the climate. This is something we have with 4 banks. We have other activities like assessing the Paris alignment agreements to ensure what are the gaps and helping them to close this gap. So the idea is to provide this with in collaboration not only with the banks but also with other stakeholders, to ensure that we improve the ecosystem around the banks. And it's going quite well. We have, what is interesting is that we have the banks involved in the different activities, and they are not the same banks. And we provide some kind of support à la carte. So each one could join the program that feel the most suitable for them. And we will continue that because we think that this is the way to address at the same time the needs and the diversity of the banks on the different things. And I just maybe would like to conclude that the biodiversity and adaptation are very important, and you see the figures here of the achievement, the great achievement made by the group, the club, in terms of climate finance and biodiversity finance. But you see that we have a lot to do, even if in biodiversity we improve, we need really to increase. And there is a commitment from the club to do more on the adaptation, on the biodiversity, and we are going to concentrate our activity also in that regard. I will stop here, and I'll be happy to reply any question you may have on specific activities we have in the climate facility.
Many thanks, Mustafa. And it's, I think, quite unique that a facility like that has been set up within a group of development banks. And you didn't mention that, but you're raising finance from members, but also from external sources as well for the facility. So that's also the sign that there is external interest to contribute to this facilitation. And this echoes, I think, what you said, Alejandra, about the need to mainstream climate throughout everything that a financial institution is doing, and particularly, of course, a development bank. Saying so, I just wanted to mention that IDFC signed during this COP an agreement with the Mainstreaming Climate Initiative, which is a broader initiative that is also supporting financial institutions, not only public but also private, in integrating climate considerations in all of what they do, and that will also probably reinforce, I think, all the work that IDFC and the facility is trying to do in this area. So many thanks for that. Time is running. And we will have time just for one last round of interventions. I would kindly ask you to keep them short, but I would be very much interested to hear from you what would be the priority challenges and or opportunities moving forward. What would be the main things that you would try to focus on to continue seizing the potential of the development banks in contributing to financial system transformation? It can be things that are within the development bank system, but they can be related also to challenges outside. The development banks, they don't work in a vacuum, of course. They are in a context where there are regulations, there are public policies, there's private finance that needs to be mobilized, so they can also relate to those issues. And if you had prepared priorities on those questions, on challenges and opportunities moving forward, but if you want to change them because you've heard from others, don't hesitate to do so as well. So I don't know, Anderson, maybe we could start with you.
So let me follow from the previous intervention that I mentioned about the coalition, everything that was done. So you're talking about challenges and opportunities. The coalition also announced here an ambition of mobilizing $10 to $20 billion for sustainable activities in the Amazon. So to do that, like I think that the opportunities that we have is really the combined forces of multilaterals and public development banks. And how do you do that? Like the national development banks, they have that capillarity that is impossible for multilateral banks to have, right? They go really to the end. They know the context, etc. They know the problems on the ground, from regulatory issues, mobilization. Like they know there. But they, like in the current context, there is a huge problems of funding, fiscal constraints, and the FX risk that was mentioned here. Multilaterals bring that type of potential of bringing resources in a way that is more affordable, mobilizing resources internationally, driving, for example, from the AAA that you have, and bring the funding. And one of the main things we announced here, actually, in working with the government of Brazil to support the transition, was an FX facility that will support Brazil to implement, and we're working on that, on what are the different mechanisms of hedging to FX risk that we can then go down the chain until the projects are there and done. So I think that the challenges are these of the costs. It's very costly, it's very risky, like there needs to be capacity, but it's through this combination of multilateral public development banks is an opportunity where we can try to shift and bring much more flows for that.
Yeah, many thanks, Anderson. And this is super interesting. It resonates a lot with the discussions on the reform of the global financial architecture, and could lead to multilateral development banks. investing more in local systems rather than in investing directly in projects or programs, or at least a combination of both, which I think is very interesting. And I understand that IDB has been championing that for many years. You've been supportive of local development banks already for quite a long period, and it's exciting to see that you're taking that route even further. Alejandra, what would be your views on the top opportunities, challenges to tackle?
Yeah, from our perspective, one thing that I would say three things. So the first one is continue building a case about how developing countries and the Global South also has to build on the consistency of financial flows and how it is good business for us to do so. The second one is growing bigger these experiences that we have with private investors, financial investors, insurers, pensions funds, and how they relate with development banks in creating the enabling environments for this transition and for mainstreaming climate change. And thirdly, I think Latin America is going to be on the spot in the next 2 years for the G20 presidency in Brazil and then COP30 also in Brazil. So we want to build this campaign for our region to be a role model in the just energy transition enabled through all of these actors.
Yeah, thank you so much. And indeed, lots of things happening in Latin America in the coming 2 years, and also very interesting to see what your views are on the possible improvements and next steps, and regarding the role of development banks. They are more and more central to this story. This provides a lot of responsibilities to these institutions, and it's again not an easy task, but we need to be up to that. Olympus, what's your take on that?
Yeah, my closing remarks will be short. I think the challenges are big, but even more so the opportunities. There's significant capacity needed at various institutional levels, skills needed to respond. And in that regard, partnerships are quite important. On our side, we have found that, for example, our membership to the IDFC is quite key in responding to that. Mustafa will tell you that when I'm facing challenges at the office, I pick up the phone and I talk to him about how we could respond to the challenge. And it helps that you can have a view of peers from different directions in terms of how they're responding to the challenge. And really that peer-to-peer learning and learning by doing, I find it to be quite important. Thank you.
Thanks, Olympus. Having been involved in IDFC discussions in the past, I was surprised to see that when you have colleagues meeting, it's not about a beauty contest. Oh, I've done this and I've done it better than you and so on. No, they speak all the time about, oh, I have this problem, I have this challenge. How do I resolve it? It's so difficult. Do you have the same? Oh, you have the same. Okay. And that is obviously extremely helpful. And I know, having witnessed it, that MDBs are also more and more partners in this space, where there's also this candid but very necessary discussion that needs to be taken to the next level. Edgardo, what would be your views on the top priorities moving forward?
There are a lot. I agree with all what is being said, but I mentioned accountability, because you need to know the impact of the projects, of what we are doing in every part. If we don't have an accountability and we don't have this being well measured and shared to everybody, well, as I mentioned before, what is not known, it doesn't exist. So accountability I believe, is a key issue. Another key issue is capacity building, because the development banks, in my former life, I was a private banker and development banker, and in the 90s, the development banks from Latin America, they have big departments where they analyze projects. Now they lost this in 1990 or whatever. So we must begin to have to build capacity on the institutions in order to know how to analyze projects, because this is something that you believe they know, but not everybody knows it, and this is something that in ALIDE we work on this issue. And the third is to work together. The COP is so nice because they give you the opportunity to be in touch with the social society, with what they're thinking. And regarding to the Amazon, I was talking with someone in one of the pavilions that they was talking, okay, we can't have projects, we can't put the land again in order to be worked for the people. So which is your model? I ask. Okay, we can work. We have a project, a contract with the people, and for 30 years we can use what the products they have. But I've been also, I was CEO of one agricultural bank, and it's very difficult to finance someone in the agricultural for a long time. If the product will be, you will receive the money 3 or 4 years more. So we must have a balance on this. So these are the things we must work on that. And for this, the developments can work, but they don't have the funds to do this, because you have to be paid on this time, and probably a project like this takes you 30 or 20 years to be built. So finally, what I think is that together we can do more.
Thank you, Edgardo, and very well noted these recommendations, and ALIDE is very much involved into facilitating the challenges or the resolution of the challenges you mentioned. Mustafa, what would be your views?
Yeah, thank you, Alexi. I'm going to echo what Olympus and Edgardo was saying about the capacity. But maybe before that, I would like to say that, of course, financial resources are very important and key. I mean, for a bank, it's the basis, it's their fuel. So if they have adequate financial resources, they can do more. But I think that's the other resources, which is equally important and maybe even more important, is the knowledge. Because it's all knowledge, in fact. And the knowledge is important and for that you need to have the human resources. And you see the difference after 5 years, when I have had the experience on the banks, you see that after 5 years of having more people working on one issue, the bank is transforming. And we have this experience in AFD ourselves. So it's really key. And it's helped that we can have more expertise. The importance also is to increase the awareness among the bank. Not only to have a small team dealing with the business, it's important also that people from the middle office, from the back office, from everywhere will be also equally embark in the project, in the vision. Otherwise, it's remain with a small portion of the bank, and it's not diffusing in all the banks. This is something important. The knowledge is also important to improve the collaboration, for example, with MDBs. And we know that because we were involved in the discussion we have in MDBs for the common principles. And it is important to bring your specificities when you come up to this criteria. You have to discuss with the MDBs, so it requires a lot of capacity, a lot of time, and many of our members cannot offer these resources to discuss with the MDBs, and this is important for that. It's also important to have these resources to to increase their partnership with other important stakeholders, and for example, the cities. We talk about this project on the urban sector. I think that's a big, important partnership between MDB, National Development Banks, and cities will be key for the transition. And so this is really, and also this knowledge is important to not only to implement what the government is providing as rules, it's also to discuss and having this capacity to analyze, to qualify the public policies, and to provide some advisory work. And for example, we had a discussion with Olympus, told me that in the past, the BSA has had a department in charge of doing that, and it's important thing too that the bank need to do, not only because it's important to provide what are the conditions for a successful implementation of these policies. And this dialogue between the government and the banks is also important. But for that, you need to have this human resources and this knowledge capacity. And I will really insist on this aspect.
Thanks, Mustafa, to putting humans back in the center here, as Edgardo and others have. And also to point out, among others, the fact that, again, we don't operate in a vacuum. And as Alejandra was saying, also the enabling environment is super important. And development banks have also a say and can, from a practitioner's perspective, provide a few inputs on that. Shuang, may I include you in this conversation and maybe have you share with us a couple of thoughts on what would be, according to you, seen from the World Resources Institute priority next steps for development banks to contribute more and better to financial system transformations?
Sure. Maybe 2 quick points. First, to actually echo and build on Anderson's point, the FX initiative, for instance. I think development banks can play a lot more important role in the risk-sharing mechanism, the credit enhancement mechanism in place. We have some data points, for instance, the joint MDB report, I know that doesn't include all the DFIs, but the joint MDB report on climate finance just published a couple of weeks ago. There's a very important data that for every $1 MDB spent on climate, they can only mobilize about 25 cents in private finance. This is a data that we need to kind of feel like this is the challenge and what the problems we need to address. So with some mindset of the development banks are now really crowding out the private finance. But money should be used more strategically in engaging and mobilizing private finance and using some indicator to see how we can make progress on it will be very important, and I'd love to see how we can explore this. The second point is I'm actually reading all the data in front of me on the progress of IDFC. I do notice that there isn't a data on adaptation finance. I don't know if it's just I missed it or it's somewhere else on the wall. I think there are areas where the business model for private finance and also the appetite for private finance will not be ready as the development financial institutions are. Adaptation finance can be one example where that we will need more important investment and engagement from development financial institutions before the other stakeholders will be ready to invest at the level that DFIs can. So how can we evaluate the priority areas based on the business model, the readiness of those projects? Something that I think will be interesting to investigate into as well. Thanks.
No, thank you so much, and this is very insightful. For those who are following online or will be looking at this in replay mode, Shuang was referring to this side of the wall where we have key figures corresponding to IDFC's work, including the more than 280 billion of climate finance that the club has provided. Indeed, there's no figure on adaptation, but there is that figure in the report.
I can give it. It's 30 billion about, so an increase of 50% compared to last year.
So it's close to 10% of the total climate finance provided by IDFC. Not enough, of course, but it's increasing, and this is an agenda that of course is a priority one. But many thanks also for pointing to the private sector mobilization story. Indeed, the numbers of private finance mobilized remain very low, but maybe, and many of us here have been referring to that, it's also related to the fact that that maybe the type of action that development banks can and should be doing in this space is not necessarily related to a direct co-financing with the private sector. Of course, there is a lot that can be done and is being done, but it's also about working more towards an enabling environment that can help more private sector investment come in. It's putting the billions, but also seeking to shift the trillions. That's the bottom line story. Well, with that, many thanks. We are already over time, so many thanks for your participation. This is to be followed, but there are many insights here and ideas that have been noted, and the conversation will continue. We will, of course, when it's done, share the outcomes of the study that WRI is conducting, and anyway, it will lead to potentially another event or conference where we will be inviting also stakeholders from outside the development bank space, because this needs to be discussed in a more systemic manner, including with governments, regulators, think tanks, and others. So to be continued, but many thanks for this. And one very last word, IDFC at this COP released a paper relating to how IDFC sees the future of climate finance post-2025 in connection with the discussions here at COP on the new collective quantified goal and the implementation of Article 21C, the Sharm el-Sheikh dialogue. In this paper, one of the things that IDFC promotes is the idea that beyond volumes that are absolutely needed and need to increase, there's this idea of adding another dimension to the climate finance criteria, which is a more qualitative dimension, looking at how impactful or transformational climate finance can be. And there's a list of examples that IDFC believes could be transformational. Among those, you have capacity building finance that probably has more transformational power than financing with the same US dollar a bit of a wind power plant or something like that, and also among the transformational elements that could be considered for climate finance is the reinforcement of the local financial systems. Anything that can contribute to that, as Anderson and others have pointed out, could be counted differently than the traditional climate finance with co-benefits. Paper published this week by IDFC and open for discussion, but also a continuation of this discussion. Many thanks again, and looking forward to a lot more on all of this and together, of course. Thank you.
Institutions, enhance collaboration between members and partners,